Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by, here in Las Vegas, of all places, by Lyn Ulbricht, someone who's been fighting against massive odds for her son, Ross, his freedom, and someone I have a lot of respect for. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Thank you.
Now, your son's story is unthinkable. One of the most disgusting infringements of individual liberty we've seen in recent years in the United States. Can you go into his story for those of our viewers who haven't heard?
Okay, I'll give you, it's a very complicated case,
Yeah.
but I can give you an overview. Well, my son Ross Ulbricht is now serving a double life sentence plus 40 years without parole for all nonviolent charges that are associated with his involvement with the Silk Road website, which was a dark net marketplace that operated on voluntary free interactions that had very few restrictions and allowed various things to be bought and sold with Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, including illegal drugs. It did not, the rules forbade things that the administration felt victimized people that were not voluntary, such as child pornography, stolen goods and data, violence, and but it did not. It was an open place. It was not a regulated
he
market.
wasn't doing that. It was
No.
other people that were using that.
Yeah, he was convicted of, and there's a lot of questions about what actually did happen, but the jury found him guilty of operating this site, and the judge, shockingly, could have given him a 20-year mandatory minimum, which is very long.
Yeah,
20
sure.
years is a generation. 20 years is a very long sentence. And instead, she gave him double life plus 40 years.
You know, it kind of breaks my heart to see someone who is simply trying to make things easier for people, more convenient, letting people trade freely. You know, it's one of the hallmarks of the United States in its founding was to be able to do things unrestricted, be able to express your individual liberty unrestricted from the state. And when someone sets up something that, you know, is making a lot of people's lives easier, and then someone hijacks it, a few people hijack it and try to do obviously terrible, horrific things using it, like child pornography, that can't be thrown on the plate of the person who put it forward. The person who invented the internet isn't in jail for what was being used in the same way on the internet for so many years. And it kind of makes me think that there's a concerted effort to try to silence anyone that tries to open up the doors to further individual liberty and freedoms. And your son's Bitcoin was seized, I do believe, and it equaled a large amount of money, especially today. It's worth an insane amount of money, and they took that. What right did they have to take something like that away from him? And do you think there's any hope for people to understand this story enough to be able to fight back loud enough in order to hopefully get him out of prison?
Well, I think it's important to realize that this is a political case. The other defendants in the Silk Road case that were drug dealers, and Ross was never even charged with dealing drugs or of anything violent, by the way. There were questions of murder for hire that were never prosecuted. They were never at trial, never charged, never brought up, not ruled on, and never prosecuted from an indictment in Maryland. It was just said, it was just talked about, which is a very dangerous thing when you think about it as well, that the government can just do that and enhance a sentence, because it was used to do that. But the other defendants, the longest sentence I know of is 10 years, and it goes down from there. The biggest drug dealer on Silk Road got 10 years. The biggest heroin and cocaine dealer got 5, and it continues down. Biggest meth dealer got 3. So it's not about drugs, very clearly. The judge said, it is clear that you started this site based on a philosophy, and I'm just not sure that's a philosophy you've given up. And so she brought in the philosophy of libertarianism, voluntary interaction to justify putting someone in a cage for life, because it's such a dangerous, threatening philosophy. Everyone who cares about freedom should take note of this. This is illegal to bring in someone's political views in a sentencing, but she did, and it's quite clear that this is what was threatening. And the Bitcoin too. Chuck Schumer, who's behind the case, was on the Senate Finance Committee, and I think Bitcoin was very threatening to them at the time, and as was Tor. They said anyone who uses Tor has criminal intent. Now, Ross has told me his idea, and he said he got out of it. He said he did not, he was not the big drug dealer and all of that, but or kingpin. But he said that his whole thing was about privacy and freedom. That's what he was. He was a Ron Paul supporter. He was, all of that, and he was trying to create that opportunity. And he was idealistic young man.
Especially when he had a good heart, he had good intent, and there's so many people that for so many years have complained, rightly so, that our civil liberties are being infringed at an insane level. Free markets are completely desecrated. People are taxed to death, and here's something that comes along that it can improve so many people's lives, and I know it has. I mean, the amount of people that have been able to make a steady income, and whether illegal or not, and this is just me saying it, whether illegal or not, people are trying to make a living without getting half of their income extorted from them from the government. They want to be able to feed their families. So if the government insists that this is only ill intent, I'm sure there is, obviously, as with any other situation, there is ill intent by some individuals on it. But the fact that people want to be able to live freely and make a living and be able to feed their family and heat their homes in the winter, that is a basic of individual liberty, to be able to actually take care of yourself. And to call anyone that is against being able to free themselves from these chains that so many revere criminal is absolutely insane. So I found, talking to people about this case, everyone that knows about it is disgusted by it. Everyone that doesn't know about it, well, they just don't know about it. That's right. The thing. It's either you know about it and you're disgusted, or you don't know about it at all. And I really hope this continues to get out to a larger audience, and I'll do whatever I can to help you out in that as well, because it's so important. This is just the basic of life itself, is individual liberty, to do as you please as long as you're not hurting anybody, to be able to, there's one person in this world you truly have control over, and that is yourself. And without that, then you don't have the basics of life. I mean, to be able to freely interact and voluntarily exchange ideas and goods for services is a basic of human rights, which, people like Chuck Schumer talk so much about human rights, but doesn't even know what the word means. So where are we at in the fight today? How far along are we?
With Ross specifically? Ross has now been moved to a maximum security prison with people who are violent. I mean, Ross is a totally peaceful person. He has never been accused of violence. He's no history of violence. He's a first-time offender, and he's being put in a maximum security prison to protect you and me from him, which is, absurd if it weren't so horrible. And the government is doing that to many nonviolent, mainly drug offenders. They're clogging the prisons with them and making a lot of money, at the taxpayers' expense. So Ross is in a maximum security prison now, and he has appealed, and it was denied. And one of the reasons the appellate court in the Second Circuit denied it was, he said, well, there is writings on the site that say the government is the oppressor, and that shows that you don't believe that the laws are right, and so maybe you'd be a bad candidate for recidivism, and you'd come out and still think the laws were an oppressor. So this sentence is justified.
Tell that to the founding fathers who founded this country based on the fact that they didn't want to fight unjust authorities.
Exactly. And for a judge, well, now more than one judge thinks that is a very valid argument. That's a terrifying thing. But in any case, the Second Circuit did rule, Ross will, his defense team will petition for a rehearing, saying, "Wait a minute, think this over." And one of the points I think is going to be, and I'm not writing it, is the fact that, wait a minute, this is a philosophy. You don't enhance a life sentence with someone's political beliefs. But if that fails, which normally the Second Circuit's known to not rehear things, then the next step we have, the next option is to petition the Supreme Court.
Well, how can
Long
people?
fight.
It's insane. It's almost Orwellian.
It is
to see this. And what can people do to help raise awareness and help support you in your fight?
Well, getting the story out like you are. Follow and share on social media. Social media has been a great boon to us, and I work hard at it, but it's just pretty much me, and it's a lot. So just helping amplify that. Of course, the government crushes you with how expensive it all is. We always have ways to help us out financially, to help us continue the fight, which we will do. There's a whole action page of different ideas. On the grassroots level, I'm very available, and I really see this as a bigger fight. It is Ross, but I like to use the spotlight of Ross's notoriety to call attention to these matters. The drug war, the criminal justice system, which the more I learn about it, the more horrifying and terrifying I realize it is, and how they're caging more and more Americans on the most absurd charges for hugely long times. That's a whole other issue that is just horrifying. And it all goes part and parcel of the same issue of our individual freedom and an oppressive, intrusive government that is voracious and relentless. And we have to take a stand, or it's going to be too late. I really feel like we're at a tipping point in history, and that we have to realize that. So many people don't. To make them aware, and so to help us keep fighting, and to also the bigger picture, because right now I really think we're at a crossroads in history.
We are.
It's very important.
It's hard not to see it, and apathy begets evil, and it's a domino effect. But at the same time, from our end of things, it's also a domino effect, and we affect enough people, those dominoes will fall.
That's
and
right.
Eventually we will be able to regain the freedoms that are intrinsic within us and not from the state. And I thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you,
I hope
Josh.
people join the Free Ross campaign, share it around, make it your profile
freeross.org.
picture.
I'm going to put that out there.
freeross.org.
Freeross.org. Really, if you go to freeross.org, you can contact me, you can get ideas, you can learn more about the case in depth. The more you learn, the more horrifying it is.
Absolutely.
So,
So thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank
And
you.
I hope that a lot of people here at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas maybe first time hearing about Ross, and hopefully there's a lot of people here with very powerful voices, and I hope that can help spread this message that much further. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Like what we do here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, we can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com. The future of social media, where you get paid in cryptocurrency to blog and post. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.